In some of Solomon's last words in the book of Ecclesiastes, he writes in chapter 12, verse 13, he says, "The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." And so in the 12 chapters leading up to the last words here, Solomon's talked about all the things that he had. He was the richest man in the country. He had the most pleasure attainable. People came from all around the world to talk to him. He had endless possessions and parties and alcohol. And in short, he had it all. And yet in the midst of everything possible from a worldly standpoint, he says that after all the time, after all of this, it did not satisfy. The women, the money, the fame, all of that left him with a feeling of nothing inside. It was like a chasing after the wind. And yet in the very last words of the book, he concludes with what is most important. And after trying it all, he decides that fearing God is what is the most important thing in life. Now, many scholars believe that Solomon is writing this book at the very end of his life. He started out in a positive direction, and then he drifted, to put it kindly, he drifted far, far away from God later on. And while Scripture does not make it clear here, it's possible that later on in his life, he turned back to God near the end of his life. And so with that perspective and with that time, he was able to say, hey, the most important thing to fear is God. Now, what does it mean to fear God? Fearing God doesn't mean to be afraid of him, at least in the sense that you would be afraid of a monster under your bed when you were a child. To fear him means that you have a deep, heartfelt belief in who God is. When you fear God, you understand that he is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You understand that he created the world and that he holds it together. You understand that one day, he is the one who will judge the world. You understand that he is the one who deserves all the glory and the praise in your life. And so when Solomon says to fear God, he doesn't want you to run from him in fear. He wants you to run to him in fear. I love how Psalm 84:10, written by the sons of Korah, puts it. They say, for a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. Now, I don't know who the sons of Korah are, but let me tell you, they got it. They knew that there was nowhere better to be than with God. And so they would rather be a servant peering into God's courts than to be a successful person in the tents of the wicked. In other words, they feared God. Now, what about you? Do you get it? Do you fear God? Do you aim for God's presence, or are you happy in the tents of the wicked? The answer to this question is so important, and it's going to determine the direction of your life.